I thought my direction in life was to be a federal agent. I wanted to
Oh,
be
nice. Okay.
an air marshal after 9/11, living in New York City and having that whole thing
Yeah.
happen. And the more I start, my dad was like, dude, if you want to be an air marshal, you got to go talk to some air marshals. And all the air marshals were like, you don't want to go FAA, go ATF. And then I went to talk to
Yeah.
ATF guys, and they were like, you don't want to go ATF, go see. So I didn't even know that there was all these different departments for all these different things. But I started processing for all of them. I processed for
Mhm.
I tell everybody everything with 3 or 4 letters I process for ATF,
Right.
DEA, FBI,
Yeah.
CIA. And to your point, I was very surprised because getting a criminal justice degree, I thought I was going to go FBI, and they were like, "That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for like accountants and
And
attorneys, and
lawyers. Yeah.
like it was all like these other things that I didn't know." But I was very interested with the processing. The processing side of it for all these departments was so different, especially like processing for NYPD. Like the way they talked to you, the way they treated you, the place they put
Yeah.
you, and then like a week later, I processed for CIA. No, no, DEA.
Okay.
Beautiful building, bought you
Hmm.
coffee, had like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like so. I'm curious, one about the processing, but two, another thing you brought up was the second they sat down, they were like, "Look, you're gonna have to sign a mobility agreement," and they were like,
Right.
"Which means you could potentially go work anywhere in the country." And then I will never forget it. He goes, "This is going to be really shocking to everybody here." He's like, "But if you want to work in New York or New Jersey, you'll probably get it because people don't want to be here." And we were like,
Yeah.
"What?" And he was
Yeah.
like, "The
Yeah.
rest of the country," he's like, "there's intelligent life outside of New York City." So it was like one of those things where it's like, they're going to put me in Nebraska. And he's like, people in Nebraska don't want to freaking be in New York City. So
Yeah. They don't want to leave. Yeah.
yeah. As far as Secret Service goes, talk to me a little bit about the processing and
Mhm.
kind of the whole thing warming up and the testing and what it took to actually go from the dream of wanting to be in the Secret Service to actually getting the opportunity.
Man, I've been on the job 25 years. I had my 25-year anniversary in February, so over 25 years. So you got to remember, like we didn't have email when I was in college. So the application process was much different back then. Like it was a hand typed, 100-page application, and so there's different steps you go through, right? It's been streamlined now. Everything's online and it moves much quicker. But I mean, from the time I applied to got hired, it took almost 2 years. Again, this is not the case now. We get people through pretty quick now, but we're not looking for perfect people. We're looking for people that have unique qualities and characteristics that want to serve their country, are willing to do a hard mission, because let's face it, it's hard. And admittedly, we have some retention issues because of the mobility and the travel. We're the only federal agency that's gone all the time, and it's the nature of the beast with protection, right? So but I'll get to that in a second. I want to answer your question. So your initial application goes in, and then you're usually scheduled for like a standardized test, right? And you go to one of those, I forget the name of the contractor, but one of those like Pearson VUE testing facilities or something, and you take it. Everybody takes the same exam. So you take the exam, that gets scored. Once you pass that, you move on to the next phase of the process, which is your panel interview. So you'll come into the office, you'll be interviewed by a senior agent or supervisor, and every applicant is asked the exact same set of questions. And then your responses are recorded, and then you're evaluated on whether you move on to the next phase of the process. So then you could go to the next phase of the process, which would be, I think now it's the physical exam, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and a mile-and-a-half run. So you need to score a certain amount of points in that matrix to then move on from there. And I'll be honest with you, man, to get on my soapbox here, I'm on it all the time on is we have people every week that show up unprepared for that physical exam. Every week. And your first impression to the general public, whether you're a cop, an agent, Secret Service, FBI, doesn't matter, is your physical presence, right? And everyone thinks it's, oh, they got to be taller. Oh, it's got to be a man. Oh, it's got to be this. It's got to be that. No, it needs to be someone that looks like they're capable and someone that's comfortable in the role they're in. Not confident, comfortable in the role they're in, right? And that starts with your appearance and your level of preparation, which is physical. But we have guys and gals every week to show up, can't stop halfway through the run and throw up and everything else. So it's unbelievable. But that would be my advice to anyone looking to get into law enforcement is before you even think about applying somewhere, make sure you are physically prepared, because you got to look at it like this. You're going to be challenged in the academy, and I'll get to that in a second. And you're going to be challenged throughout the hiring process. Why be nervous? Like you have to take a polygraph exam, you have to take a written exam. There's a very intrusive background investigation. So be nervous about those things. Why be nervous if you can make the mile-and-a-half run in a certain amount of time? You should know that, already. That should be something that doesn't even enter your brain. And then to go off to the 8 months of training, you're going to be tested on protection methodology, law, all kinds of different classroom work, investigations, firearms training, tactics training. Why would you go there stressed about physical fitness? You should go there knowing like, hey, I got that part, right? So you take your PT test, you pass that, then I believe it's your background interview, very long, very intrusive interview. Should take a couple hours, and then you're given your polygraph exam after that. All Secret Service agents take what we call a full scope polygraph. So lifestyle, national security, criminal, social behaviors. Stressful, but if you're honest, you can get through it. And then your final is a home interview, right? And that's where we have either supervisors or senior agents will go to your house and meet with your family or your significant other if you have one, and explain just how hard this job is, to make sure there's no confusion when you take the job, that you will be gone nights and weekends. You will be gone for birthdays, for anniversaries, for holidays. You will have to move, right? And that's just kind of part of the mission. So after all that, then you're issued a conditional letter of employment. Congratulations, Nick, you've been hired. We're going to keep you in New York. You'll start in the New York field office, and then you kind of start out your career from there. Generally, there's 3 phases to an agent's career. Mine has gone in completely different directions, but now there's generally 3 phases, right? So phase 1 is your first office. So again, congratulations, you've been hired. You're going to start in the New York field office. If there's any agents listed, they'll flame me on this, because they'll be like, I was only in my office 10 years. I was in mine for 5 years. Generally, it's 3 to 5 years, depending on the operational tempo and where manpower is needed. So you generally spend 3 to 5 years in your first office learning how to do protection, because not only are you assigned in New York, but you're traveling all the time, supporting the president, the vice president. You're traveling overseas, you're traveling to other states. So you're learning how to do the job. And then when you're home, you're working your investigations, right? And so then after that, nowadays, all roads lead to Washington, D.C., and that's where you'd go, and you'd be on the president's detail. Right. And so you'd go and you'd spend, I think it's up to 6 years now, assigned permanently to the president's detail, full-time protection, no investigations, traveling a ton. Everybody lives in DC. And then when your time there comes up, and again, this is just a loose framework. So if anyone's listening and their careers went different ways, or I'm missing something, I apologize, but this is the loose framework. So after that, then you kind of get to phase 3 of your career, where you're coming off the detail, and now maybe you have a little bit of choice of assignment, right? So you could say like, hey, I was down in Jacksonville and went to a great jiu-jitsu gym. I'd like to go live in Jacksonville. And if there's an opening in Jacksonville, then you can kind of compete for a spot there. And, then you could be pretty much done, unless you want to go into the management track, which is what I did. And then it's, more moves, more assignments, things like that. So that's kind of like a loose life cycle of an agent's career, just a nice 50,000 foot overview.